Yeah, hello, hello. Yeah, I think for this session we don't have the moderator, so I'm just gonna play by ear. This is Dan from Hash. I joined like Hash last year as a part of the investment team now located in Singapore. And as you might know, Hash is like we were the co-host of the like Korea Blockchain Weekend. We started back in like 2017. Have now more than like 150 like Porcos, including our fellow Porco backpack. And yeah, it's really excited to join this GigaBrains chatting with the interoperability. And yeah, I'll just like make it simple and toss the mic to Tristan.
Hey everyone, thanks for listening in our chat here. I'm Tristan, community manager at Backpack, and a couple other things.
Community manager.
Hey guys, Dan Reecer, one of the co-founders of Wormhole Foundation. Been working on Wormhole for about a year and a half. I've been in the industry for I think about 6 years now, but good friends with Tristan and just getting to know Dan, but been a fan of Hashed for a long time, so thanks for being here.
Cool. Yeah, I think we can get started with the community side of the question. So how do you So both of you guys are like very hardworking on pushing your community to be really stronger and stronger across the years. So what do you think is the main component, the main ingredient, the sources to make your community more stronger and also aligned in some aspects down the road altogether to build a really user-oriented product? Probably starting from you. Yeah.
Okay. I'll start. So I think the answer is a little bit unintuitive, actually. We see a lot of attention put on marketing, on hype, on getting engagement. And while that's really important in crypto because distribution is king, and it's actually really hard to get distribution in our space because basically everything channels through one place, and that's Twitter. I think the way to build a community and what worked for us, and I think we have one of the strongest communities in crypto, especially with the Mad Lads, is doing things that don't scale. And I know you guys have heard that before, and it's like something that Brian Chesky from Airbnb says, and at the beginning they were going house to house and taking photos of the Airbnbs and updating the listings for the customers. But what we did is we essentially realized that in crypto, you only can reach distribution if you have that intersection between tech and culture. So we had product, we have a really strong engineering team. Armani, my co-founder, is just an absolutely cracked dev. But we didn't have the community aspect. We didn't have the cultural aspect. And if you look back at Bitcoin, and this may be a little of a cheesy analogy, but we think it's very true, it wasn't just that Satoshi solved the double spend problem and brought all this innovation to the space. It's also all the early libertarians and cyberpunks and people who said, holy shit, this is cyber money. Like, this is complete libertarian ideal of sovereign money that you as an individual can transport with you wherever you want to be or wherever you want to go. And it was that combination of the two that allowed it to grow to where it is today. And so we needed that. And what we did is we just spent hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours with individuals, and we shared our vision of the world with them. We shared our ideals for our company, and we shared our mission, and they brought it into themselves, and then they became the backbone of our community, and they were able to carry that torch forward into everything else that we've done. So I think spending all of that time was probably the most important component.
Yeah, one thing I wanted to mention about Wormhole and the way we think about community is that we've been around for going on 4 years now, and if you've been following the space, especially in the Solana ecosystem where we started, we've been working on building up our product and building up our community over 4 years, and then now we're getting to the point of decentralizing, going live with governance. So we focus a lot on products and learning from our developers and understanding that Wormhole is essentially, it's a tool that's always going to be used with something else. So for developers, you're using Wormhole with Solana, with Backpack, with Sui maybe, with Ethereum. So the way we think about the developer ecosystem is that Wormhole is a tool. So this is how we approach hackathons. This is how we approach building developer community. And the same thing goes for the user side. Users are always going to be using Wormhole with two chains if they're doing a transfer or cross-chain swap. So a lot of the way that we've built our community is we think across all of crypto. We don't think about one chain specifically. So we're engaging with certain communities like Mad Lads. We're working with different L2s in the East space, working with Sui and Aptos on the Move side. So that's kind of high level how we think about community. And then totally agree with Tristan on doing things that don't scale. Like, we have an ambassador program that we call the fellowship that we spend a lot of time building up. Those initial 5, 10, 15 relationships that you have with individual people are really the core. I'm sure Mad Lads has the same kind of history with their community. So that's really what we're focused on now, is building that core and then scaling out from there.
So yeah.
Let me bounce it back to you. So you've helped many different portfolio companies. You've seen a lot of them have very innovative ways to do this. What are some of the interesting community building things that you've seen in the space?
I wouldn't specifically just mention like 1 or 2 projects, but still in general, what I think, what I have as a lens of like good like community building is actually ironically coming from the good product shipping. So basically, I think there's a twofold for the crypto projects. One is definitely the product itself, same as the Web 2 side of the projects, and also since this is very like retail driven, which is like quite different from what we have from the like Web 2 side of the same point. I think meeting those expectations, like promising a bit of more like exciting, more exaggerating sometimes, but still meeting those like timelines and expectations and building, shipping something that is really usable for the users. Those are really, I think, generally the ones that are building the most like sovereign community, and that is the reason why I mostly like to echo on your statements, like the teams that don't scale, because like generally like we just missed the sweet spot of where we can like build the like in-person relationships before the projects get so the project get continued without the like actual users not having a really healthy relationship in person, but just having the metrics coming from the bot side. I think that is not sustainable in a like long-term manner. So basically, I think you just have to like go like visit your real users who are actually the people sitting behind the computer and enjoying enjoying the entire the product that you're building. So that is the reason why we're hosting, and also try to like bring all the people all together like in this like big conferences and try to understand more about the each other's needs, and also like serve the best for each other's the needs from the community and also the product builders.
One thing he said there is actually really important. If you guys have projects, never buy followers. You will kill your social media, and you will never catch up to that again. So just really, really strong recommendation there.
Yeah. Obviously. And yeah, I think that is a good question to start with. And like moving to the core questions, the agendas for today as an interoperability. I would start with backpack side first. How does like Backpack think about the interoperability, and what would it be actually look like as a product on upcoming like 3 to 5 years on from now?
Yeah, so both of our core products are things that don't depend on a single chain. They actually are all about creating this connection between all the different chains. One on the on-chain side, one on the off-chain side, but it's essentially the same thing, where you don't want to specifically say, this is the only network that we care about, these are the only users that we care about, because there is still so much growth to be had in this industry, and if you are just thinking about one place in one moment in time, it's going to be really hard to actually grow the pie and get out of where we are right now. And this, one of the examples of that we've seen with Wormhole is that we were very Solana focused at the beginning. The majority of our users on the wallet side are Solana users, but since we've added the EVM side and we've had this ability for people to move assets in a cross-chain manner, we're starting to see the EVM growth happen in a pretty strong manner. And I think a lot of that is because we're seeing the Solana users actually using the wallet to now go explore these other ecosystems, because it's in the same product they already use on a daily basis. And then on the exchange side, it's a similar thing where initially we went after the Solana ecosystem, but now that we've added Ethereum, that we've added Bitcoin, it's actually allowed us to really expand the user base that we can go after. And so I think there's a little bit of nuance there, where a wallet and exchange are obviously very interoperable cross-chain products. And I'm not saying that every on-chain application should go and try and be multi-chain, but I do think that if you get too myopic in your view of what network you're working on, and that's where all of the value exists, then you're probably going to get stuck, because we're too early in the industry for that.
Yeah, and then like probably moving on to the like wormhole side. Yeah, the most like recent update, one of the exciting ones I call NTT, the token transfer one that you're building. Can you just like, briefly like introduce that one once again, and also probably like one from you guys can also introduce the partnership and how you guys are working closely with all together with the product, the partnership.
Yeah, if you follow Wormhole at all, NTT is something that we're talking about quite a bit right now. Wormhole, going back to when we first got started, we were doing wrapped token transfers between Solana and Ethereum, and that has obviously scaled to about 30 chains. But the industry, I think USDC actually had a big influence on people's preference for burn and mint tokens over wrapped tokens. So CCTP came out, and then we saw very quickly developer preferences shifted to we need to have burn and mint, or we're not going to be using your guys' protocol. So we built native token transfers, which is a framework. It's an open framework, not necessarily a token standard. It works with any token standard like ERC20 or SPL, but it's essentially an open framework that you can use to natively transfer tokens between any chain that Wormhole is connected to. And it's typically a burn and mint model, but it's flexible so that if you have a token that already exists, you can do a lock on one end and a mint on the other end. So NTT has been getting a lot of traction. I think the one just a couple weeks ago to note is Lido. Wrap staked ETH, we went through this dating back to November of last year, a massive forum discussion with the Lido DAO around what framework or what standard they should use to take Lido from Ethereum to BNB chain. And interestingly enough, we're seeing a lot of consolidation even within the interop space. And Lido actually chose to leverage NTT to take wrap staked ETH to BNB chain. But the interesting part about NTT is that the verification of the messages that are being sent cross-chain is modular, so you don't have to use Wormhole's verification system, the Guardians. In this case, they're actually using both Wormhole and Axelar, which I think is the first time in the industry that we've actually seen two interop solutions being used at the same time for additional security guarantees. So the message has to be verified by both Wormhole and Axelar, then it's delivered to the destination chain. So just one example of kind of the flexibility of NTT and why the Lido DAO selected this for their cross-chain solution.
And also, like regarding the partnerships, like everyone just came out.
Yeah, totally. So as I was mentioning, Wormhole powers all of our cross-chain bridging and swaps. So basically, with all the different networks that we support in the wallet, you can say, I want to either move the same asset, so Ethereum on the L1 to Optimism or Arbitrum, or you can say, I want to swap my Sol for Ethereum on Arbitrum, and it allows you to go through those different pathways. But what I think is really interesting about NTT, and we've been seeing it with CCTP as well on the Circle side, is that wrap tokens are a mess. I think if we can move to different models, it's going to be a lot better for the industry, and it also takes away a lot of risk that we're seeing with having these things just sitting there on these bridges. So for example, with Wormhole and Lido and these other things, you can now just natively move your Wormhole token from the Ethereum layer 1 to the Solana layer 1 or vice versa without having to go through any of this rigmarole around these wrap tokens. And it's much more seamless, and the liquidity is much better, and it's much faster. I mean, you don't even really have to worry about liquidity, right? Because it's just reminting it on the other side. So it's a much better solution.
Yeah, just one thing to mention is like everything that I talk about, we're using for our own token and our own products, like using NTT to take W basically exists on both the Ethereum side and the Solana side, thanks to NTT. We're also rolling out soon it's called MultiGov, a multi-chain governance solution that also uses Wormhole messaging in partnership with Tally. So that's going to be the first time you've ever been able to vote on an EVM chain or on Solana, and all these votes get aggregated into a DAO that you can have voting across L2s and Solana. So we're excited for that to go live soon too.
And I think one thing that people don't realize about Wormhole that I find particularly exciting is that when people think of bridges, they tend to think of moving these tokens from one chain to another in some capacity. But there's actually a lot more happening with the message busing. And I think Wormhole is a really good example of this because they're the message bus for Pyth. So I don't know if you guys know Pyth, but they're probably the highest performant oracle in the crypto space right now. They're on their own PythNet SVM. But they have to move this data from PithNet, which has the lowest block times in the space, to all the other chains that are using this data, essentially. And so they're using Wormhole for that. And so I do think that there's like a nuance here when people think of bridging, that it's not just about tokens anymore. It's also about all of the messages that you are sending across these different chains and the utility that essentially unlocks with what you can do on an interoperability level. So I think we're actually getting closer to this multi-chain narrative that we saw in the past, but it isn't necessarily about just like moving your assets over from one chain to another and then using those in the dApps on that chain. It's actually being able to do all these attestations and different message busing.
Yeah, just for an example, another good example of this is Uniswap governance. Uniswap is using Wormhole messaging to transmit governance data decisions that are made on ETH mainnet to all their deployments on all the other chains. If you're running Uniswap on Avalanche or on Moonbeam or on any of these other L2s, you need to understand what governance decisions are being made on ETH mainnet. That's not tokens being transferred, that's governance data being submitted through simple messaging. Gets received on the other end by the recipient chain, and then those new parameters or new rules that Uniswap is installing on the new chain get read by the destination chain via messaging. So lots of use cases outside of just token transfers.
Yeah, and these messages have the same security / decentralization guarantees than the actual token transfers. So it allows for really interesting things. And I think we're going to start seeing more of that as well. There's like, I know we're supposed to be about like Wormhole and Backpack, but there are people now doing cool account abstraction stuff, like the Infinex guys. And I think it's because of these things that we're starting to see come from some of the bridging companies. So I'm actually excited to see what that looks like going forward.
Yeah, maybe for Dan, like anything you want to call out on the interop side that you guys are seeing or excited about?
Just wanted to mention that basically, starting from like 2020 to 21, there were some of the like earliest like players, and like Wormhole got started around like 2021 to 2, right? So basically, around that like moment of time, we have like some of the like industry leaders like Axelar for the infrastructure level. So in Hash, we're like try to target more of the like application, like consumer side of the like the use cases that were going to be flourishing on top of those protocols. But I think, the first the like product market fit is obviously the trading. For the entire ecosystem. So that's the reason why I think the Backpack is having the first run of those like use cases to actually like crack out the interoperability. But still, what I'm like trying to see in like a 2 to like 5 years is basically more on the payment side, where is it, the Solana is also like focusing on for the most. So just you want to
I've actually been annoying the Wormhole guys about this, where I think a really cool product that they could build is essentially just buy anything on any chain with any asset. So to give you an example, I show up at Tensor and I was like, oh, there's this Mad Lad, I really like it. I only have Ethereum on the L1 or on wherever, Starknet, who cares? And I just can, through this API SDK that they've built, buy that Mad Lad using Wormhole. I think that would be really beautiful, and I think that's where I would like to see some of the aspects of the space going, where you have to move out of this mindset of, oh, where are my assets? Where do I have to move them? Are they in the right place? Do I have gas tokens? To just having a really simple solution that you can kind of just operate from one base and then go out and do that wherever you want to do the on-chain transactions. That's something we're working on the Backpack side as well. This is a little bit of a spoiler, but you can imagine having your exchange custodied assets able to do on-chain transactions. And I think that's something that's really exciting because it gives people the security guarantees that we're able to offer, but also allow them to access the on-chain world directly. So excited for that as well.
Right.
Yeah, we just launched a startup program, so if you want to build out Tristan's idea, we have funding for that.
And I just want to sort of say something I think might be helpful if there's folks who are building community or founders here in the audience. I think my intro is a little bit of a word salad. So just to get a little bit more specific on what I mean by doing the things that don't scale, is that we work in an industry where the feedback cycles are much shorter and much faster, because this whole like building in the open thing is pretty true. If you're building on chain, your contracts might be open source or source available, and people are looking at it. You're probably posting on Twitter because that's where most of the attention comes from in crypto. And so you need to also be there on the ground level with the people who are either using your products or the holders of your token or the holders of your NFT, and really understanding what they want. And that's not to say let the masses rule you and say what you should do as a company, because that's a terrible direction to go in as well. But you need to be really paying attention and giving these people the time of day to know that giving their feedback to you is valuable and that you appreciate it. Because sometimes you'd be surprised by how good the product feedback is, or the ideas that you can get by crowdsourcing from your community are, if you pay attention and if you sort of give them that genuine human treatment that you would give somebody else if they told you they were a founder in the space. So one last note on that is, I don't think people realize how badly people in crypto who aren't working in crypto want to play a part in our industry. Most of their friends aren't in crypto. They can't talk about this with anyone. They might be in a Discord. They might have bought an NFT, and those are the people that they can relate with. But if you give them a seat at the table, you will end up with people who will support you to, death and back. And so I encourage people to think of their users and regular, retail crypto participants as, people who also have a seat at the table, and I think you'll end up with really good results.
And same goes for developers. If you're building an infrastructure tool, talking to developers and understanding what sucks about your product, what's great about your product, but also what products you're missing. I think this is one thing that our product and engineering team has done well over the years is you start to see Wormhole become a platform. It's because this queries product that we launched, NTT, these are all informed by feedback from our developer community. We're not just coming up with these ideas ourselves. So, great point, Tristan.
All right. We still have like 5 minutes, but still, I wanted to spend like the rest of the time asking about your more regional side of the insights, since like we're coming from the different, side of the globe. The audience, you might notice that Tristan is based in Japan, which is quite not that much usual for the like Western founders to like stay in. And also, Dennis, you spend a lot of time in South America, so just wanted to hear about the regional side of it, like the opportunities and the potential you're seeking for in the next like 3 to 5 years. I think you also wrote us something about the Japan's side of the things like for the recent tweet. So I just wanted to start from you.
Yeah, at an overarching level, there is still a huge issue in our industry, which is that the East and the West are divided. And I think a lot of the companies in the West don't realize that all the liquidity really is in the East, and the volume and the token holders, not just from a dollar count, but from a number of people count. There is way more action in the East than in the West. And I think that a lot of the issues that we actually see with crypto adoption and expansion are that the Eastern companies have a decent job at getting the Eastern participants involved, but they have a really, really bad or hard time in getting the Western participants involved in what they're building. And so our overarching theme, and the reason that we live in Japan and we have a really solid APAC team, and actually most of our users on the exchange side are in the APAC region, is because we want to be the bridge between the East and the West. And I think if we're able to unlock that, there's just a tremendous amount of value. And so what I would encourage people is, if you're in the West, don't disregard the East as a really, really important market for you to be able to penetrate. And if you're in the East, probably hire somebody in the West to actually go and do the communication, because there's a lot of cultural differences that make it hard to bridge that gap. And so you want people on the team that can have both perspectives, so you can have good debates on how to do the messaging, on what you need to do for your users, because also the user bases are very different. Like in the East, sorry, and I'll hand it over to you, but in the East, the users are much more pragmatic, and you need to be aware of that. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. We just need to be aware of the pragmatism. And in the West, people are a lot more idealistic, and you need to be aware of that, and you need to be able to feed into the vision and the things that they care about as well. And if you're able to do both of those things in a good manner, you'll be able to grow your user base a lot more than if you were just focused on one or the other.
Yeah, like Dan said, I spend a lot of time in South America, and I think there's a drastic difference between South America and even the US and Europe, and also versus this part of the world, which is a lot of the people in countries like Argentina, Venezuela, and various parts of the continent, they use crypto for some of the original reasons why crypto even began to exist. They are getting out of their local currency and into things like Bitcoin or into stablecoins to preserve the money that they worked hard for, because if they don't, it's dissolving away through inflation in these parts of the world. So that's one thing that we're noticing, is that more of the use cases in Latin America are related to stablecoins. So a lot of the governments down there are actually willing to take more risks and move faster. So we're seeing adoption of central bank stablecoins, but also stablecoin use cases for literally for cross-border payments. That's been kind of a meme for the last 10 years, but it's actually happening in Brazil, in Argentina, in Colombia, Chile. So a lot of the work we're doing on the interoperability side is people are launching stablecoins and they're tokenizing real-world assets, and they don't want to launch these just on Polygon, for example, where some of these are live, or on Gnosis chain or on Ethereum. They are launching and they want to go multi-chain relatively quickly to be able to leverage those stablecoins in different DeFi ecosystems. So yeah, pretty different culturally. This probably has GDP implications and inflation implications, but it's been interesting to watch.
Yeah, something I want to add on to what Dan is saying is that if you are chronically on Twitter, it becomes pretty easy to become cynical and to think that this is just all a sort of circle jerk trying to make money and people aren't trying to create good causes or good things in the world. And I think that's a blessing of being in countries where we have established financial systems that we can tap into, and we don't suffer from a lot of the issues that many countries do, where these people are just unbanked and have no access to financial systems. So just know that there are a lot of parts in the world where people are truly using crypto on a day-to-day basis. And just because that's not our reality in the countries that we live in, doesn't mean that it's not happening. So I would just urge to not become cynical, because crypto can make you cynical sometimes.
All right, cool. I think it's now the time's up. Yeah, thanks for listening to this wonderful panel.
Thanks, Dan.
Thank you.